Welcome back to Final Expense Telesales. My name is Dana Neeson. We have just finished book 1 of the Empower Life book club. It is called Supercommunicators by Charles Duhigg. In this video today, I'm going to give you an overview of the book, some of the key concepts and reasons why I think you should read it. It might help you in your personal sales and journey into becoming a stronger, more sophisticated sales professional. If you're just now finding this channel, thank you so much for being here. I am the owner-founder of Empower Life Group. We are a life insurance agency specializing in telesales, final expense insurance, but we also sell other types of life products as well. Stick around, we're going to cover this book, and then at the end, I'm going to reveal the second book that we are going to start reading. So the book Supercommunicators is titled How to Unlock the Secret Language of Connection. And it starts out by kind of highlighting the 3 different types of conversations that we all have. And it's very possible that all 3 of these conversations happen in a single discussion. So we have practical conversations, which are revolved around decision-making activities, problem-solving activities. We have emotional conversations, which are centered around our feelings and emotions, how this problem might impact us. And then we have social conversations, which kind of talks about who are we in this conversation? What is our role? What are our relationships and the social dynamics that surround us when it comes to having this type of conversation? Overall, the theme of it is recognizing that the type of conversation is crucial, and that if you're not having the same conversation at the same time, then that leads to feeling like you are not being understood. If we translate this into our sales process, if you get somebody on the phone that is a type A personality, they are probably wanting to have more of a practical conversation. And if you've been following my channel, you know that we want to get these people into more of an emotional conversation. But if our prospect is having a practical conversation and you want to have an emotional conversation and those 2 things don't align, that can lead to hangups. So it's important to be able to identify what type of conversations our prospects want to have, meet them where they're at, allow them to be there, and then transition them into the type of conversation we want to have. And part of the discussions we had during these book club meetings were, how do we get people from a practical conversation to an emotional conversation? And if you join the book club, there's lots more of those discussions happening in real time. The book also covered the matching principle. The matching principle talks about when you're having the same type of conversation at the same time, that we actually start to synchronize with the person that we're talking with. Meaning that if you were to look at our brains hooked up to monitors, that our brain waves would start matching and aligning, which is why when we feel like we're having a good conversation, it's because usually our tone is aligned, the communication style is aligned, and the type of conversation we want to have is aligned. So this could also translate into like mirroring, right? You want to kind of mirror the type of personality that your prospect is so that they feel comfortable having that conversation with you. In addition, Charles also talks about looping, right? Looping for understanding. We talk about this a lot in sales calls. Looping is asking open-ended questions, paraphrasing the response, and then asking if you got it right. Now, we've been talking about looping for years, which is somebody tells you the reason that they don't want their family to have to come out of pocket and pay for their final expenses or pay for the bills or pay for whatever. And they go on and on and on. And instead of just responding with, okay, great, and moving on to your next question, you simply loop. So if I'm understanding you correctly, because you've covered a lot of information with me, it's important for you that your daughter and your son don't have to come out of pocket and pay for your final expenses or any remaining bills that they might have to, because they have their own families and they're busy with their own lives, and you don't want to have to be a burden on them when that time comes. Does it sound like I got that right? And they'll either add additional context, which will provide more conversation, which will make your sales calls not sound so robotic and like you're an interrogator. And it'll also validate that you were listening, right? Prove to someone that you were listening by looping for understanding. The book also talks about the power of asking questions. The definition of a super communicator at its core is somebody that asks more questions, but asks deeper questions. They ask a lot of open-ended questions to try to learn more. And one of the examples that he uses in the book is if you happen to meet somebody that is a doctor, you ask them, what do you do for a living? And they say, oh, I'm a doctor. What type of follow-up question could you ask? Well, a super communicator would ask things like, oh, what had you interested in wanting to go to medical school? What type of medicine did you practice? How did you land on that specialty for your field? And all of those things will encourage deeper conversations because you're getting to the heart of what caused this person to move in this direction. So super communicators often ask 20 more questions per conversation than someone who just doesn't ask questions really much at all. The book is filled with practical application stories, from a story about a CIA officer who fell flat on his face trying to recruit to turning into being the #1 recruitment officer in the country. Talks about jury deliberations and how jurors communicate and have to speak to each other in order to come to a verdict. We learned about television production and the writers of The Big Bang Theory. We learned about communication when it comes to why marriages fail and why they succeed. There was so much real life principle and examples in this book that really make it all come together. At its core, the books that we are going to be selecting in this book club, and this particular book that we started with, is all going to help you in your sales conversations. One of the things that this book also touches on is the power of listening, right? Listening is such an underrated skill that we just take advantage of, but we don't really understand the power of it. Asking follow-up questions to someone's surface level answers will show that you're curious to learn more. Acknowledging and validating someone's emotions will help them provide you more context. It's completely avoiding thinking about what you want to say next so you can be more present when you listen to someone speak. Overall, Super Communicators really is not just a book about speaking well. It's a book about how we can learn to better connect and how to figure out what type of conversation this person wants to have. It definitely is a perfect blend of science and storytelling, practical application, so that we can learn to be more intentional with our conversations, more empathetic, and overall much more curious. There's never been a better time than to think about sales as elevating your game with general communication. If you cannot just learn how to effectively express your thoughts, but help others learn how to better express their own, that by itself will help you become a stronger sales professional. And to now transition into our second book club book, I put out a poll recently, both on Instagram and here on YouTube. I asked you, which of these 3 books would you like us to read next? An overwhelming majority of us chose Extreme Ownership, which is the second book that we will read. And the first meeting for that book will actually be Wednesday, May 14th. I will be out of town the week of May 5th. Filming Ultimate Agent with Cody Askins. Yours truly will be a coach on this season, so I'm looking forward to heading out to Missouri and filming this fun show. If you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, go ahead and Google it on his channel. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to be there and very honored to be invited. If you have any interest in joining the Empower Life Book Club, you want to participate in these conversations, get to know me a little bit better, be in an environment where it's not always about sales, 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 but how we can help you be a better elevated person, how to communicate better, how to think differently, and ultimately be in a place with like-minded people. Thanks so much for watching. I will see those who attend the book club tonight.